Dr. David Mackenzie is a former Anglican priest and prison chaplain who now presents fun workshops and counsels private patients on topics that range from good sex for life to how to fight and still like each other when the yellin' stops. Every 2 weeks or so, Dr. Mackenzie drops into Studio 4. It is my pleasure to welcome our in-house couples counselor and sex therapist to Studio 4 to tell us more. Nice to see you.
Happy Valentine's Day.
I knew you were going to say that. That sets up expectations.
I know. I was thinking of bringing you a card, but I thought, no, I may make my wife jealous. So no, I'm joking.
Oh, you know, my makeup assistant brought me one. I'm his morning Valentine.
Oh, there you go.
And he's a looker.
He's a good-looking guy.
I know, a bit younger, but do I care? I'm just his morning Valentine. How cool is that?
Well, that's cool.
But it gave my heart a little start. I have to tell you.
Yeah.
What is it? It's expectations, isn't it?
Well, it's a culture of youth, and there's, I think I heard you say that there's a trend in society of older women with younger men. It's interesting.
I like that idea.
Demi Moore?
Well, maybe there's more to this than I know.
Yeah,
do you think?
I don't know.
However, some say it's just a Hallmark holiday. Yeah. Who cares? You know, bah humbug, Valentine. Forget the Valentine bunny.
Yeah. Well, actually,
not interested.
Valentine's Day actually isn't a Hallmark holiday. It is based on St. Valentine's Day, but it has virtually nothing to do with it. It actually goes back to the Middle Ages. And if you read Chaucer in his Parliament of Fowls, he refers to Valentine's Day when all the fowls of the earth mate. And it was the legend or the belief that on February the 14th, all the birds of the air would mate. And so the tradition was that you'd send your beloved a card because that was the day of mating. And Cupid has wings that's left over from that period.
I knew there was something to it.
Yeah.
I love Valentine's Day. I don't know why.
It's fun.
Could be my upbringing.
Yeah.
You know, I am from America, and we do tend to over-celebrate things.
Yeah.
And days.
Yes.
I know Canadians, I'm a Canadian now.
Yes.
And so I know Canadians make fun of that.
Well, my wife likes Valentine's Day. I've never been that sold on it, but my wife just loves it. And we go out for dinner.
I interviewed an author this week about why Mr. Right can't find you. And he said, men and women have two different ideas of romance, what romance is. Do you think that's true?
Well, actually, I keep referring to a scholar who did research on women and mating, Dr. Heather Remoff. And actually, it's the woman in many ways that chooses the man. And so you've heard this expression, she chased him until he caught her. And so there's a real sense in which women are in charge. But women need that emotional, spiritual, mental connection. Men are much more physical in what they look at. Men also need emotions, but they tend to be more, they're stimulated by the eyesight more than emotions at first.
That's what he said. Men are visual, and he's a songwriter and a philosopher. And a journalist. He's not necessarily a therapist, but he said men are visual, so if you want a guy, get out there so that a sighting can take place.
Well, that's true.
And don't take 10 women with you. That doesn't make any sense.
That's right.
Go alone.
Well, sometimes if you go alone, men could perceive that as being desperate. I was reading about Elle Macpherson in the Vancouver 24, and it said that Elle can't find a boyfriend. She's been celibate for 2 years. And she'll go up to a man and say...
That's too bad.
I know.
That's a tragedy. Elle Macpherson, drop dead gorgeous and fun and nice. I know someone who knows her. Go ahead.
Oh, but she goes up to a guy and says, you're a beautiful guy. And most guys would probably see that as being a desperate person.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought we were supposed to compliment you, like, love that tie.
Yeah, well,
that is some bow tie you've got.
Well, thanks,
did you tie it yourself?
Yes, I did. No, you're trying to be my Valentine.
No, I know you have one, but I'm saying I thought men loved us to make them feel good. Men love compliments, no?
Oh yeah, men like compliments. They like to be assured of their masculinity and that they're the special one for them, and that goes all down the line. But I'm not saying men are emotionless. I'm not saying they're just big sex objects walking around, but men are much more visual at first. And so a woman that doesn't dress well or take care of herself will probably be less appealing visually to a man. It's just part of our evolution.
So get out your silky nightie.
Yeah, whatever.
With the flannels in the bottom drawer.
You bet. Yeah, you bet. Yeah, nice lingerie. So
Black and red, they tell me.
Well,
Little lace, and not much of it.
Well, I once heard a comedian say that he hates going in malls with his wife. He says the only store in there for man is Victoria's Secret.
Okay. And the push-up bra and all of that.
You bet.
So, back to this day of expectations. What is it in us that expects, at some level, in the back of our tiny brain, our ex just may call, and this could be a female thing. Maybe the ex will call. Maybe I'll get a rose from someone, and I'm not sure who it is, but I know who it is. Maybe the new love will send me something. Maybe the man I've lived with for 27 years will get it. Why?
I think it's the need
is that?
Is to be special. And usually if somebody is hoping a next will do that, there's still something there tugging at the heart. Maybe he still thinks of me. I mean, you spend a lot of time with one person, and then suddenly you don't see each other, you obviously don't sleep with each other.
Right.
I mean, just imagine all that intimacy, and suddenly it's over.
I know.
And so there's those tags, those strings, and you think, maybe he'll think of me still.
Sure, well, I'm a glutton because even if it's done, I expect it. He left, he married another, but you still want his roses. I'm not sure what that's about. It's a dance of intimacy at some level, I suspect.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of emotion there, a lot of connection. Human beings just don't cut that off unless you're a psychopath. I mean,
are men more likely than women to cut it off?
Oh, I don't think so.
No.
No, I think men suffer long and hard. They just hide their emotions better. Men are just as emotional as women. They just express it differently.
The philosopher-songwriter who was on earlier in the week said that men are not from Mars, the Mars-Venus thing he didn't buy into. Men are looking for meaningful relationships. They are.
I couldn't agree more.
And you don't have to be Elle McPherson
right.
or a drop-dead gorgeous beauty to interest a man.
I agree. Well,
really?
My 28-year-old son, he's a hunk. He's gorgeous, 6'2", dark, and when he was looking for his latest girlfriend a couple of years ago, a lovely Dutch girl, and he said that he's not looking for just sex. He wants a relationship. And that is a minority of young men, I must admit, at that age.
Well, maybe a little of both.
How do you mean?
Well, little sex, little relationship.
Oh, well, yeah, he's not
Do you
sexless.
see what I mean?
Yeah.
No, I know,
Yeah.
but the one you choose
Yeah.
has to be somebody you can talk to over cornflakes, doesn't it? Or does it matter?
No, it matters.
I'm thinking, because you could be there a long time.
Yeah, you bet. And people grow a lot between 20 and 30. And so if I'm afraid of somebody who meets, say, a 19-year-old and he's 26 or vice versa. I'm thinking, whoa, they're going to have to really keep the communication lines going because a lot of distance can happen in 10 years.
Yes, it can.
It's a growing time.
In 10 years, the sex can get pretty darn dull, as you know. Not in your relationship, not saying that. But as you know, you hear people say, well, it was hot sex for the first year, the first 3, the first 4, and now who cares?
Common complaint. In fact, there's some belief that the age at which a child would normally be, I can't think of the word, no longer breastfeeding. What's the word? Wean, thank you. When a child's weaned from his mother is around 4 to 5 years, and that's when sexual interest usually drops off in terms of the needing a daddy at home, you know. And so evolutionary anthropologists would say it's naturally within our framework to only have within ourselves a 4 or 5 year relationship, then you move on. I'm not suggesting you do that. But
no, but I was reading the newspaper this week because all the headlines seem to read something about, you know, sex toy parties and things like that close to Valentine's. The press gets on it. And this one says, if you use the mint-scented gel in the bath, it'll put a tingle in your dingle. Well, who knew?
That's great. There's just something came out today about olfactory senses for causing libido to be raised. And a woman is researching this in one of the medical schools in Canada. And seems to be some support for the fact that certain scents, if breathed enough, can raise your libido.
However, there is a fear of sex toys, as you know, and I don't know if that's the proper term. It's probably not the therapist term.
No,
sex toys.
Sure.
Within a relationship, sex aids,
sure.
gels, potions, vibrators.
What's the fear you hear?
I don't have. Are you asking me?
Well,
I don't have that fear.
Oh no.
But
one of the fears I hear.
Some do.
Well, one of the fears I hear is that men feel that that's taking over from them. And I don't know if that's one of the things you heard or not. But
I don't know. I don't know. I know there are people who think it's offensive and something There are. You must hear it in your in your practice when a couple comes to you and she'll say, he thinks I should do this, or he thinks we should have this movie on when we make love, and I think that's abhorrent.
Well, most women are not that turned on with explicit media. Men are much more turned on with that. Again, the visual.
Back to the visual.
Exactly. But more conservative people, or especially coming from conservative religious backgrounds, will tend to shun away from sex aids and toys. But they're very helpful, especially for women trying to achieve an orgasm. A vibrator is very important.
And the after, I know foreplay is important, and then the after part, a friend of mine, I was doing a little research knowing you were coming on, and she said, and they have one of those great sex lives.
Yes.
And she said what's really great is the after, when you're just lying there together and you're close and you're united.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I had to learn that from my ex-wife, because most men...
Your ex-wife?
My ex-wife. Most
Whoops.
men... That's okay. We had a lovely marriage for 10 years. Of course I did.
Excellent.
You learn something from everyone.
I like that.
But a lot of young men will have sex and then just roll over, and she had to teach me, no, I want to be held, and I had to learn that. A lot of men don't know that instinctively. Women instinctively want that emotional connection.
And women need more foreplay generally, or not?
Yes, that's right. They need more foreplay. Exactly.
But the after part, don't roll over and go to sleep.
Right. Yeah, that's a common thing, because after an orgasm, you go into a natural tired state, and oftentimes you'll want to sleep afterwards. And so for most women, they want to be held, and that's a close time.
Right.
And I value that. I mean, I learned that. And
sure. Unless you're menopausal, and then you just want to be on the other side of the bed, and that can happen too. But as Sting was in town recently,
yes,
and playing with the Police Back Together and all of that. They're going on tour, and Sting and his wife talk openly about their relationship, their intimate relationship, tantric sex.
Yeah, good for them.
What is it?
Tantric sex actually comes from Hindu philosophy. Some of the teachings of Tantra, which are not practiced that much, but one of them is if a man withholds his semen, he'll have more energy. That can be very medically dangerous. You can get prostatitis and infections and epididymitis and all these other itises. But tantric sex is a way of being able to connect emotionally and take time with sex. It's a very spiritual way of engaging in sexuality. There's a part of Hinduism that believes, one branch of Hinduism, that actually sexuality leads to the divine.
Right. I was with the LA law couple, and they are big fans of Tantra and tantric sex, and they told me that it's like she gives to him and he gives back, and it's some kind of chi, and it all goes together.
It's an
they
energy.
spend a lot of time staring at one another, thinking about it. Maybe, I'm not sure what you think about, but I guess thinking about it, what it would be, or it's a connection is what it is.
Yeah. The head of my association, which certifies me for sex counseling, he and his wife teach Tantra. He has a PhD from Harvard, and he and his wife teach tantric sex.
Really?
He's the head of ASECT, which is the big accrediting council.
We'll have to do show on that one day.
Yeah.
Because I'm not studied up.
Yeah.
Day-to-day, ordinary activities, how does that affect what happens later?
How do you mean?
Well, you go to soccer, you pick the kids up from soccer, you go to work, you're tired, all of that. You hear young couples, especially dual-income couples, who simply too tired, both of them, in a
big complaint. I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean? Too tired at the end of the day, and the kids are squawking, and you have a big project the next day, and sometimes a counselor will say to you, well, you have to make a date with each other, a sex date. And I think, that sounds so fake.
Yeah, no, actually, Esther Perels, in her latest book, Mating in Captivity, she rightfully says good marriages and sexually robust marriages make scheduled times for sex. You have to make time. The idea of meeting the stranger's eyes across a crowded room and having hot sex in a marriage that's 10 years old is myth. It won't happen.
But isn't it too much pressure? To me, it's like,
No, no, what you do is you carve out the opportunity. It may not happen, but you say we're from 7 o'clock till midnight, it's going to be our time, the kids have a babysitter, and if it happens, it happens, if it doesn't, it doesn't.
You set the mood then.
You set the mood.
I got it.
Yeah.
I thought you had to say at 8:05.
No, no, 8:05 we start. No, no.
Yeah,
That's
after
too
Grey's
cold.
Anatomy? No, that's too much pressure, and
I
I'm
agree.
sure it doesn't work. And to me, there has to be some sort of natural inclination.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah.
What about listening to your partner? The philosopher-songwriter once again said, and I'm running it by you because he's not a therapist, he said, to be a good listener is important, but I know there are women who he's telling you all about his business deal or the mine he just found or what's going on at the office, eyes glazing over.
Yeah.
Should you fake it? Like, oh,
no,
really, honey?
I say to couples that every day when you come home from work and meet, you should grab a cup of coffee or tea and sit down and debrief for half an hour. Talk about your day. Gottman talks about building bridges of intimacy and knowledge of each other, and that's how intimacy and relationships are built. In terms of making love and having an intimate evening, you shouldn't be sitting with your partner talking about your latest work project, although you can, as long as it doesn't dominate the evening. It should be about each other, some of your dreams, your hopes, your holidays, about the kids, what you plan to do. It should be personal about each other.
Right. Last Valentine's Day, I went out with many of my friends, my girlfriends, and we had one man.
Yeah.
And he brought funny Valentines for all of us, and we laughed and giggled and had champagne and watched the couples.
Yes.
And we had way more fun, I think, than most of them did.
Think so?
I think so. We were in the restaurant, and I thought, I guess because it's that day, and they think we have to go out and we have to be romantic, right? And this is our day. And for us, the pressure was off.
Right. But sometimes, you know, you can prejudge couples. If they're sitting there quietly and hardly say anything to each other, that may not be a sign they've got a bad relationship. It just could be one of those relationships where they have such a deep comfort zone, they don't need to say a lot of words. Others like me, you know, I talk,
And often one talks and one listens.
That's true.
And very happy.
Yeah.
I have a couple of friends, and one's a talker and one's not. One says maybe 3 words a year, and the other one, yep, 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 like me.
Yeah.
And he loves it because
Marriages
he doesn't
are-
have to talk. He's so happy he doesn't have to talk.
Well, as long as you're not tuning each other out. But all marriages are different.
How do you know somebody is tuning you in? What are the signs?
Well, if you ask them a question and ask them what they think and they don't know how to respond, they haven't been listening.
That, not listening. True. If they go to sleep during sex, not paying attention. No, I understand, but it's, you know, sometimes we're not very smart about these things.
Yeah.
Who cares about you, truly cares about you, and who doesn't? It's easy to get fooled, especially in the beginning of a relationship. What are some male secrets? How do you know a man really gets you, really likes you?
If a man is doing things for you, if he takes extra care to show you his concern and listen to you and want to know about you, it's not just a matter of opening doors for you for cars, that kind of chivalry. It's his taking up very personal interest in you. And if a man is doing that, it shows that he's interested in you as a person. Anybody can fake it. They can show interest when they're not really interested. But you'll subconsciously pick up cues that if a person's interested in you or not or wants to be with you.
Sure. It's always
we're quite
astounding.
astute.
It's astounding to us when one day a girlfriend calls and says, Harry left. There's another. He's been having an affair for 10 years. I didn't know. How do you not know?
Exactly.
Or suspect?
Yeah. I know when it gets right down to it, lying in bed in the dark at the night and you're just by yourself, at some level you know something's not right. Here's Harry, who's a very horny guy. He wants sex all the time. We haven't had sex in 3 months. You begin to wonder what's going on.
And Harry's not complaining.
And Harry's not complaining. Yeah.
And he comes home late and...
Couples, should, those who have low sex drive in a marriage, and often it's women, that's the biggest concern that comes to a sex therapist, they should actually see their husband's discontent, as uncomfortable as that can be, as actually a saving part of their relationship. I was talking with Rosemary Besson, who's head of the sexual medicine clinic at UBC, and she was saying that the treatment of a certain condition in women called vaginismus, where the introitus muscle is so tight you can't even get a Q-tip into the vagina.
Right.
And in relationships where the husband's complacent and just says, that's okay, dear, we'll do it someday, they never get healed. Whereas a husband who says, I've had enough, we're going to get help, and who pushes this, and they argue over it, those are the women that respond better.
Right.
And it's the same with men.
But because we're all different, are there not men who aren't that interested in sex?
Yes.
Who just would rather read or
Yes.
do a crossword? Or
Yes, that's right. There are men who are
go to
naturally,
the ball game?
well, natural low sex drive. You cannot think that your partner's having an affair just because they have low sex drive. That's a pretty dangerous one to walk down. There's also the issue of andropause in men, in which after the age of 40, your testosterone drops significantly. And that's in a minority of men, very small. But it can cause depression, low sex drive, all the rest of that.
What is going on in a man's mind who would rather have a relationship, who would rather have sex with a sex trade worker than with somebody they love? What's that about?
Oftentimes that's a fear of intimacy. In sexually starved relationships, you'll often have men who will use the internet to masturbate with and to have a sexual outlet. In some rare cases, not often, men will pay for sex. And in some ways, it's a way of protecting and saving their marriage, as long as they're being safe. That sounds like a bizarre thing to say, but they know if they got into an affair, that would probably spell the end of the marriage. So they use these safety. Men who automatically are getting lots of sex at home, they have a good relationship, who are still going out and paying for sex, that is another emotional issue which should be dealt with by a professional.
Do you have to go back to figure some of these problems out to your relationship with your mother, your father? Is it important? Or in sex therapy, can you just move on? Here we are today. Yeah. Can we just change our thoughts and change our sex lives, or do you have to go back and say, well, what was your father like?
Well, I always take a family of origin in my sex profile with couples that I see or individuals. A lot of our present activity is based on our family of origin and primary caregivers. There are some sexual problems in which I'll say, give an assignment to a couple, like a man with premature ejaculation, for instance, or erectile difficulty. It's come on later in life. They have a good communicating relationship. And so I'll give them exercises, maybe only have a half-hour follow-up with them just to check in on the exercise.
How connected is how women feel about men to how they felt about their fathers?
Oh, lots, big time. And I think I said in my very first interview with you that you'll find women who have an alcoholic father inevitably choose an alcoholic husband, or a wife beater. They'll choose a man who will beat them. Unless you work those old movies out and deal with that, you'll tend to marry the same kind of individual. A man who has a very distant mother will choose women who are aloof. It's really interesting.
Do men marry their mothers, do you think? It's an old saying.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's true.
I don't think they marry their mothers, but all of us have these old movies of our past going through us. And a lot of it, I mean, at some level, as Vanier says, we're all kind of broken. I don't like that form of a person, we're all broken. But we have
dysfunctional's overused.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know. We have our shortcomings. And so we're trying to form a bond with a parent early in our lives.
Sure. Well, I like a good flaw. I mean, everybody should have a flaw or two, and part of being in love, I think, is accepting someone's flaws. I mean, no one's perfect.
Well, I had this Irish girlfriend years ago, and I love cigars. She says, David, you got to keep some vices in life.
Okay. You know, Dr. Oz was on with Oprah yesterday, and they were talking about cellulite.
Oh, yes.
And the women were praying that he would come up with an answer. And he said, there is no answer. The creams don't work. It's a billion-dollar industry. Here's how the fat cells work. All of that. Yeah. And then he said, men don't care. The women were frantic.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, beautiful. Yeah. Oprah said, I would not take off my clothes. No, because of the cellulite, and if you can find a way, or cellulite, however we pronounce it. Yeah. And Dr. Oz said twice, men don't really care.
Yeah, yeah. Especially when a man is bonded with a woman and feels very sexual, honestly, a woman, his partner's body is less important to him. It doesn't mean you should just let yourself go.
No.
But things like cellulite or sagging breasts or even, falling faces, that's really not an issue.
So pleasant, isn't it? Varicose veins, arms and legs, it's all good. But I think, too, if a man is terribly turned on to a woman, the men I've talked to about this, they say the woman is more concerned about her body and how it is.
Well, women have this thing about competing with each other. And so women are always in competition, who's got the nicest look and so forth.
But the man isn't necessarily looking at that. Whether you have a small belly or
men are very visually,
a bad ankle.
Well,
I mean, women are more concerned at times about if their waist is right or
I think my wife is very beautiful and she has a lovely body. But I mean, sometimes it
He
drives
says
me
on
crazy.
television, well,
Well, Valentine's Day today. I got to prepare it, you know.
I'm thinking.
Foreplay starts a long ways. But I guess what I'm saying is sometimes she'll stand in front of the mirror and say, "Oh, I've gained an inch here." And I say, "But you stop it. You look beautiful." But to her, she's constantly prepping.
Sure.
Yeah.
We always see that. Do I look fat in this? Does this make my bum look big?
Yeah.
A smart man says, no, darling. I love your bottom.
That's right. That's
Yes,
right.
I do. It's bigger than some, and I love it.
You know life.
I know life. That's so nice to see you.
Always a pleasure.
Happy Valentine's again.
Thank you.
Stay around because we have oysters and champagne
Oh, I wouldn't
and
leave.
wine and all of that because it is the day.
The day.
Okay, Dr. David McKenzie. Coming up, one of our town's favorite fish cheerleaders is raring to open slurp and talk about some fascinating oysters and other wild and fishy things. Stay with us.